So we're here really for two reasons tonight. Firstly is obviously to celebrate our rebrand, but secondly, and very importantly, it is to do what E2E was established to do, which is to discuss, promote, and build entrepreneurship at the highest level. As you're all aware, our economic and business conditions remain challenging. However, the news this morning was very positive, that we're seeing some early signs of growth. Today's SMEs count for 99.9% of private sector businesses in the UK. That's almost 60% of private sector employment. Clearly, therefore, the emphasis remains on us, those who own and run SMEs, to accelerate the growth and boost employment, coupled with effective government support. E2E, we are here to foster SME success through the connectivity we create, which is what tonight is all about, through our services and as a voice for our members, to discuss and debate the future of the UK economy and put forward their own perspectives on entrepreneurship. We have an outstanding and very highly distinguished panel of speakers. Thank you to the panel. For those of you that don't know it, we have a new chairman. His name is Darrell Eales. As many of you know, he is the Chief Executive of LDC, Lloyds TSB Development Capital. It's a real privilege to have the CEO of the UK's mid-market, the leading mid-market private equity firm, as our chair. When I was talking to him last night, he challenged me to something. He said, why don't you try beating me at the marathon? Because on Sunday, he had his personal best, 4 hours and 22 minutes. So I think I'll just sit down, I'll take it easy. We have a new board director who's sitting right at the very front here. His name is Hugh Chappell. He's an outstanding entrepreneur who's built companies and successfully sold them, I think in under 6 years. So thank you for joining us. Luke Johnson, he's not here this evening, but he's the main man, of people who don't know him, behind Pizza Express's success. He's become a special advisor to the group. All these three gentlemen are key enablers for any business, and we're extremely lucky and grateful to have your involvement in E2Exchange. And that's in addition to our existing board directors. A few of them are here this evening. I maybe just ask you to stand up as a way of saying thank you. Kanya, Alexander, Hugh. So thank you to my existing board. We also have a new corporate partner, UBS. I had the privilege of meeting Jamie Broderick recently. He's the new Chief Executive of UBS UK Wealth. He spoke to me about linkages, strong and weak linkages, the linkages that we create in our life, and he said actually we shouldn't undermine the weak linkages, because the weak linkages often have the most significant value in terms of our lives and our successes. This was music to my ears, because obviously the ethos of E2Exchange is to create connectivity and linkages. We have a new partnership with Big Issue Invest and Nigel Kershaw, OBE, who's the chairman of Big Issue Group. To kick things off, we're going to be hosting a fantastic social enterprise competition in July. Nigel is here tonight, so he can tell you a little bit more about it. We're also beginning an association with the Royal Navy. The First Sea Lord kindly spoke at one of our recent dinners, and following this, we've partnered on a few initiatives. Captain Mike Beardle and one of the other captains is here. They're standing right at the back of the room, so please feel comfortable, and it's nice to have your involvement. So with our business, what we're trying to do, we've established E2E Invest. This is the new funding arm of the business, and I'm delighted to say we've already had our first few successes. We will soon launch E2E Exec. This is about providing executive and non-executive recruitment services for our members. And under E2Exchange, we've already hosted 11 events this year. We have another 19 as a minimum to come in London and around the country. These events are being co-hosted with our corporate partners, LDC, UBS, IBM, Irwin Mitchell, Cavendish Corporate Finance, Smith & Williamson, Quintessentially Group, and Morgan Rossiter. All our partners provide the spectrum of services that we believe our members need. So thank you to our corporate partners. We're trying to become the go-to organisation for driven entrepreneurs with high-growth businesses, and are delighted that our progress has been matched and actually exceeded by many of our members. We're also looking to promote ourselves in terms of charity, and I'm really thankful to Tony Mascolo, OBE, co-founder of Tony and Guy. He's also here this evening. He's very kindly donated a raffle prize, which is right at the back of the room. It's over £300 worth of goodies. And we're selling some raffle tickets, so we'll keep on fundraising and let everybody know who the winner is tomorrow morning. So the winner will get an email from us. Now, without any further ado, it's with great pride that I'd like to welcome and thank our esteemed guest panel of speakers, the Right Honourable Michael Fallon MP, Minister for State for Business and Enterprise, Lord Parry Mitchell, Shadow Business Minister. Now, Lord Bilimoria is on his way. He's just passed Hammersmith, so he should be here in a minute. He is Chairman of Cobra Beer Partnership, and he's also Board Director of E2Exchange. Iqbal Wahab, OBE, who's the founder of Roast Restaurant, which I love, and the Cinnamon Club. Darryl Eales, he's sitting here. He didn't want to stand on the stage. He's Chief Executive of LGC, Chairman of E2Exchange. Darryl will deliver the closing comments at the end of our debate. And it's with great pleasure that I'll ask Iqbal to chair the debate. Thank you, Iqbal.
More recently, we've probably started to view government's approach to business by how they deal with banks. My own experience of banks, since I was quite interested in a first restaurant, rather ambitious first restaurant. NatWest lent me £1 million at 2% above base with no security. 7 years ago, opened Roast, and the bank lent me £500,000. Both those restaurants turn over and generate over £1 million net profit each year. So about 2 years ago, I thought, I'll open another one, but this time I'll do it without investors. Investors irritate me. And I bet they irritate all of you. Some of you are probably investors who irritate other people. So I thought, why don't I go to the bank and say I want to do something? You put up half, I'll put up half. They wouldn't give me a penny. Wow, this is extraordinary. And then more recently, the government initiated a couple of schemes, the funding for lending scheme and the what's another one called for guarantees? Export finance guarantee. Export finance guarantee scheme, and there's so suddenly I thought maybe I should try this again. So I hired a broker and I said, see if these banks are actually doing anything, or they're just like more government. Whatever. Karen enjoyed this. That's good. And within a week, I had 3 banks calling me up, offering to finance 50% of the project. Oh, this is good. So I've called them all 3 of them, and I showed them at this event. I said, the bank that gives you the best deal, I'll mention them at this event. And HSBC, and so that shows you 2 things. Firstly, that the new schemes are working, and it also shows you the power of being involved with E2E. So need to make sure I pay my membership. So now, ladies and gentlemen, on to the main event of the evening. In the red corner, we have Lord Parry Mitchell, Labour spokesman on Biz Affairs. We have the Right Honourable Michael Fallon, who is on a short deadline, so I'll make it as quick as I can. And who represents the Conservative Party and this government. And we have Karen Bilimoria. I can't bring myself to call him Lord Bilimoria because I've known him for 20 years. And he will represent the neutral zone, or his blue version of the neutral zone. So can I first invite Lord Mitchell to come and make the case that business is better off under Labour government?
Thank you very much, Iqbal. You know, when you spend all your life talking to politicians, it's great to be with entrepreneurs again. That's where I come from, and that's where I feel most at home. I must tell you something, absolute God's honest truth. I'm going to have a cheap snipe. I just can't resist it. I was being wired up just over there with the mic and everything else. And the guy did say to me, where shall I hide the cable? And I said, you're mixing me up with somebody else. Shalini, you were talking about beginnings of a recovery, 0.3% growth in the last quarter. It's amazing, you know, how managing expectations happens. We were all thinking that it was going to be plus 0.1%, maybe even minus 0.1%, and then it comes up with plus 0.3%, and the champagne corks are breaking out. 0.3% multiplied by 4 is 1.2% GNP growth. It's better than nothing, but it is not. This is not a recovery that's taking place, I promise you. Now I'm going to do something very unusual for people in this position. I'm going to start off with great joy talking about my failures. I love my failures. You will appreciate this. The greatest failure I had in business was I opened a restaurant. I mean, God only knows why. It was in Soho. It went by the name of Mitchell & O'Brien. And it was a New York deli brought to London. And it was the coolest bar and restaurant in London. They came in, they went out, we won all the awards, best this, best that, and everything else. But it went bust. And I lost, well, it wasn't a 7-figure amount, but it was pretty damn close. So that was quite painful. And then I went into a business that I thought was very sexy, and it was the financing of brand names. We thought it'd be really good if companies like Cadbury's, if you could actually get their brand name, the brand itself, valued, and provide financing against that brand to help the rest of the company, security of the brand. And we got all these people, companies like Interbrand, and they value the name of the companies, and we went to them, and we got some people who got pretty close to doing it, but nothing happened. We were ahead of our time, but I went down 400 on that one. And I also had various other companies. I had a graduate recruitment company. I had an election technology company, and they also went under. So in my time, I can tell you, I've had my fair share of losses and pain. But luckily, I've had my successes as well. And my successes came in the area of leasing, in the leasing of high technology. When I stick to what I know, I do really, really well. So from the age of, well, from 1969 to 2006, I set up 4 companies in succession. Well, one of them I didn't actually set up, just worked with. The other 3, I set up myself, literally sitting around the kitchen table, and in each case building it up to being a major global player. The company United Leasing, which was became the first listed company, full listing on the London stock market, and we started it and sold it 11 years later. I sold my first company in June 1987. I sold that company sold in June 1987. My final company was sold in 2006. And as I say, you can say whatever you like about me. I don't care how much it hurts, but you can never criticize my timing. And you know, I say all of this because I know entrepreneurs, and I know you guys are entrepreneurs. And I know it's good when it's great, but it's horrible when it's horrible. And it's risk and reward, and sometimes you think like chucking the whole thing in, but you keep on going. And people who are not entrepreneurs just don't understand it. They just think the money appears from somewhere, and it's really easy. It's never easy for anybody. It's tough. Iqbal, I'm sure you've had your few ones that have gone wrong, and we all have. And I think that's what makes us stronger and better, and just better entrepreneurs. And that's why when I'm dealing with politicians, I have to say, which I do most of the time, and it's true of all of them, I hear them getting out talking about entrepreneurialism and this, and we're going to do that, and everything else. They haven't a clue. Honestly, they don't feel it. They don't really know what it is. And I think it's a reflection of our system, to be honest, that we have so many people getting into politics who don't have proper sort of background. I mean, for example, the Chancellor, any Chancellor, will get up and say, we've reduced income tax from whatever it is to whatever it is. We've reduced corporation tax. We've reduced the inheritance tax. That's what's going to make us an entrepreneurial society. 1972, I set up my first company. Do you know what my marginal rate of tax was? 98%. Top rate of 75%, plus unearned income of 15%. 98%. I don't even know what capital gains tax was at that time. Probably it was the same. It was all, and I had no idea about inheritance tax, and I didn't care. I wanted to set up a business. I wanted to be a businessman. I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to make something that everybody else would look up to. I wanted great customers. I wanted great staff. And I wanted to make it bigger and more fantastic than even I thought was possible. And I managed to do it. So when you hear these people about a little bit of fine-tuning here, a little bit of fine-tuning there, believe me, they have no idea what they're talking about. And how do you think Richard Branson and Alan Sugar would think about that as well? Exactly the same. Now, in politics, as I now am, for my sins, I have two responsibilities. I sit on the front bench for Labour, and I'm responsible for small and medium-sized enterprises. Mine is the easy job. Michael, as the Minister, is much harder. Of course, he has all the real responsibility. But I also head up Labour's digital task force. I'll say a little about that in a moment. Now, all governments want to boost SMEs, not only in this country, around the world. SMEs have become flavour of the month. Now, you know something's wrong when they use the term SME, because what they don't know is that small companies and medium-sized companies are totally and completely different. It's a different mentality. I've always thought that medium-sized companies have more in common with large companies than they do. A small company can be one man in the dark. So I do use the term because nobody else understands it if I don't use it. But I think it's an insidious term, to be honest. This government, if I can have my little bit of a go, I mean, just think of all the initiatives that have been announced in the last 3 years. I mean, I can talk about Project Merlin, you mentioned about one, you can get the name right, I can't get them right. There's a list of about 12 or 13, all of them different initials. And it's my job to know what they are, and I don't know what they are, so how can anybody else know what they are? To be honest, it's been a total mess. But I have to say, it's getting better. And I think the funding for lending scheme is beginning to get some form, and I may be stealing Michael's thunder, but I think the announcements that were made yesterday about funding for lending is a really good step in the right direction. It's really targeting SMEs for the first time, and it's basically saying to the banks, this is the direction you've got to go. And also, it's now possible to use intermediaries. And I come from a leasing background. 1/3 of all capital financing in this country comes via leasing. We were excluded from it, and now we're going to be included, and I think that's really good. So I hope it works. I hope for the benefit of the country that it's successful. It's a long time, but at least we've got there. There is a train crash about to happen, and I don't know what businesses you are all in, but if you are not having sleepless nights over the digital revolution, you absolutely should have. Digital revolution is not about using Ocado or Amazon. There are changes happening in the whole digital technology that's changing everything, everything. So let me just give you a couple of examples, not in business. I don't know if anybody's heard of LOOC. I don't even know what it stands for, NOOC. If you go to Leicester University, and I'm sorry to choose them, I could have chosen anybody, Bristol or anything else, and you're doing history, and you have a lecturer who's doing some particular subject, why should you be listening to him in a hall like this when you could have up on the screen the very, very best lecturer anywhere in the world, doing it on the screen with complete internet connection so that you can ask questions? And you're going to see our universities changing dramatically, becoming global institutions with global learning, I mean really increasing standards. And the universities have got to be aware of it. But so has every business. Anybody here seen the new House of Cards? Yes. Netflix? Right. I mean, this is really exciting. So Netflix announced a new television program series, 13 editions, announced on one day, and you can only stream it. You can't get it through Sky or BBC or anywhere else in the world. The only way you can get it is streaming it from the internet. So what's that saying about all these other providers of content? The game is changing. It's changing because of the technology. So my advice to anybody, and I'm going to make sure my party is absolutely on top of it, is just be careful because the game is changing. It's a new world we're going to be living in, and if you're not there quickly enough, you're going to be in trouble. I'll leave you with one thought. I stand in front of my Labour friends, and I say, you know, this coalition government's absolutely terrible. And I say, just look at the high street. HMV have gone bust, Jessops have gone bust, Blockbuster Video have gone bust, because coalition's absolutely terrible, and of course they all know, because it's the sort of stuff they want to hear. I say, not true. Nothing to do with the government. These companies have gone bust because they misread the technology. They didn't see it coming, and it's hit every single one of them hard. There are going to be many, many more like them. They're going to really be caught blindsided. So I'll leave that with you. Thank you very much for listening to me, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Parry. I hope and I can see that your investment in Netflix is working well for you. One of the good things we have today on our panel is that all the politicians are actually business people, and that goes for Mr. Fallon too. Michael will now come and make the case for the Conservative Party.
Good evening. Yes, I had the privilege of working for an entrepreneur. I worked for one of your board members, actually, who was on the screen a minute ago, and that was Duncan Bannatyne. He's his development director in three businesses we worked in together. But now I'm a minister in the government. I've been there for 6 months. I think it was around 6 months, you quoted House of Cards. You may remember that other series, the older guys here called Yes Minister. So after about 6 months, I remember Jim Hackett leaned back in his chair and he said, I've been minister here for 6 months and nothing much seems to have changed. Bernard says, you must be very proud. It's not like that. We do want this country to change. We want this country to be the very best place in the world to start a business, to grow a business, to finance a business. And that's why we want to focus on enterprise and do much more than any previous government to champion the people like you who risk your own money to create jobs for others in order to put this economy back onto a secure footing. Now, of course, times are tough. And that's why in government, we want to work with business to ensure that our businesses are fighting fit and ready to win in these challenging times. And let's look at the figures. Last year, more businesses were started in Britain than on any year on record. There were approximately 490,000 new business startups, higher than in any other year since 2008, and only a small drop on 2011. Now, businesses need the right conditions to do well, and I want to focus very briefly on how we help businesses get access to the finance you need, how we support small and, Harry was right, yes, micro businesses and medium-sized businesses to grow and to expand. A significant challenge for businesses, especially for the smallest, is accessing the external finance they need to grow. Many are discouraged from applying, often by the negative media portrayal, being told constantly that banks aren't lending, or simply being unaware of the help that's available. Only 1 in 10 SMEs applied for funding last year. Now, government has to help there. First, with a number of schemes, and yes, we're improving the funding for lending scheme. It started successfully, but most of its impact has been felt in the mortgage market, and we're changing the criteria now with the help of the Bank of England to ensure more of it gets through the banks into SME lending. And through our own schemes too, like the Enterprise Finance Guarantee Scheme, which has offered over 2,000 guarantees, enabling 250 million of finance so far this year, on top of 350 million of finance last year. But more needs to be done while we're reforming the banking system, making it more competitive, encouraging new banks to come in to the market, making switching between banks easier. While all that is being done, we need to do more ourselves. So that's why we're building a business bank to address specifically the difficulty that SMEs have in accessing the capital they'll need. That business bank will have $1 billion of government funding, which will be used to lever in extra private sector finance. From this spring, some 300 million will be invested by government and private investors as well. But it isn't simply finance. It is also vital to ensure growth as well. And we're doing that by creating a competitive tax system so that businesses choose to locate here and to grow. That includes taking difficult political decisions like scrapping the 50p income tax rate, effective from this April. That means reducing the cost of red tape that holds business back. That means targeting investment in infrastructure to unlock business growth. And that means, because of the importance of business as wealth creators, it means too cutting taxes on business. There will be a further 1% cut in corporation tax from April 2015 to take it to 20%. The joint lowest in the G20, significantly lower than corporation tax in our key competitors, the United States, France and Germany, but lower too than the rate in China, lower than the rate in Indonesia, lower than the rate in India. We're particularly keen also to boost investment in early stage businesses. That's why we're extending our seed enterprise investment scheme. Investors get a 50% reduction on capital gains tax when they reinvest in seed companies right through to 2015. Now, where businesses face obstacles to growth, they also need access to the right kind of support. Only half of British businesses seek advice, but our academic research tells us that those who do take external advice are twice as likely to grow as those who don't. We want to see more organisations exactly like this one, run by business people, for business people. We've recruited 15,000 new mentors from the business community to a total of 27,000 mentors accessible up and down the country. We're making 30 million available from this budget for a growth vouchers programme that will test a variety of new approaches that will help SMEs overcome barriers to growth, being able to purchase external advice. Over the next 3 years, our Growth Accelerator programme is set to deliver 75,000 new jobs. We have targeted 5,000 companies in the first 9 months and another 20,000 companies each year. These are the small companies with the highest growth potential who are able to access specialist consultancy and coaching with government support. Now, I could go on and describe a whole range of schemes, but the true function of government, obviously, is to get the public finances right and then to help build the right conditions for enterprise to flourish. Getting the tax right, cutting the regulation back, and making sure that businesses have access to a competitive range of finance. And finally, doing what we can in government to help change the culture. Entrepreneurship is alive and well in this country. I believe entrepreneurship is growing again. I see it particularly in colleges, amongst young businesses, amongst our young people. It's government job to make sure that we help entrepreneurship to flourish and create more businesses like the ones you run. Thank you.
Our next speaker is probably well known to all of you, if not personally. They probably drank many gallons of these 5 Coke beers that I have. But I have a particularly personal story with Parry. I, in 1990, had a public relations company, and my first client was Cobra Beer. We launched Cobra, and we went on to open a couple of other businesses on our own, which, as Parry says, is not always going to be, not every business does as well as you want, so we won't really talk about that. But the one thing that I have against Curran, which I hold to this day, is that he never used this fantastic advertising slogan I gave him. And do you remember what it was, Curran?
Which one?
Get hissed with Cobra. It's no praise. No praise.
All that money I could have saved all those years. Fantastic to be here at the launch of E2E. What a great turnout. Thank you all for being here. And I want to right up front acknowledge Shalini, who's been the driving force behind this. So thanks, Shalini, for what you've done. Iqbal, thank you for chairing this panel. How many of you have gone to Roast? Why aren't the rest of the hands up? It's literally one of the best restaurants in London. It's fantastic. Please go there. And they serve cooked beer if you do it. Now, you mentioned banks. And of course, we have to thank all our sponsors. We do have banks amongst our sponsors. LBC, UBS, Howard Lees here, Cavendish is not quite a bank, but great advice. So thank you to all our sponsors, and it's really, really brilliant. Being here is quite nostalgic for me because it's around the corner from Harrods. And my first business was not Cobra Beer. My first business, when I actually started the business, decided to make that leap, was selling polo sticks. I captained the Cambridge University polo team on our first ever tour of India. And I went there, and the stick maker said, look, you're Indian, you live in England, will you buy some of our sticks and use them? I said, sure, bought some of the sticks. I said, will you sell some of them when you get to England? So I made a few phone calls, and I was in business. I was selling the sticks, and the guy who gave me the hardest time was the assistant beer buyer, not beer buyer, polo stick buyer, Freudian said, at Harrods. And this wretched fellow wouldn't even take my calls. And eventually, I just persevered, and I managed to get a meeting with him. And then the head buyer was there, and he just sent the assistant buyer away, and I got my first order of 200 sticks from Harrods. So I never looked back after that. And it taught me one of those great lessons that all of you entrepreneurs in this room, a word that you hear more than any other word when you start in business, very short word, no. And you've just got to convert that no into a yes. And of course, nobody supports you when you start your business. The people who support you the least are the people who you hope will give you the most encouragement, and that's your own family. You know, my father, when I started, I mean, he was distraught. I mean, when I started Cobra, and I would go up, he was by now Commander-in-Chief of the Central Indian Army, 350,000 troops under his command, huge mansion of the headquarters. And I'd go up to relax for a while every time there's a little bit of a break in the development of Cobra. Dad, isn't this great? My own company, Cobra Beer. What are you doing? All this education. And you're becoming an import-export walla. Get a proper job. Become a banker. Great profession, right? Now, you've heard it from the entrepreneurs on this platform today. One of my favorite sayings, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. And there is no shortcut to those mistakes, and we've all made them. And in my case, I've made huge mistakes, and I've nearly lost my business 3 times. And when I say nearly lost, the last time was 4 years ago when I very nearly lost the whole lot. And it's very trying, it's very difficult. Getting through them is tough. And I've just come down from Burton-on-Trent, where we've got our joint venture partners, Molson Coors, and fortunately, it's behind us and everything's going well. Government does try to help, to be fair. Not when they tax at 98%. Your party, Parry. But yeah, I worked very closely with Tony Blair's government, Gordon Brown's government, and they genuinely did care and they did try. And the coalition government now is trying as well. I went with the Prime Minister to India. The UK India Business Council is funded, which I'm the founding chair, is funded by UK Trade Investment, supported by UKTI. By the way, how many of you here do business with India? Just see some hands up. Okay, and how many with China? It's a small minority of the room. There's still so much scope to do more, and I think we need to. Parry mentioned about politicians not having much experience in business, and that unfortunately is true. By the way, this House of Cards, the program, anyone seen that program, House of Cards? It is brilliant to see it, it's fantastic. The author of it, by the way, is one of the conservatives here in the House of Lords, Lord Michael Dobbs. So it's a great program. Now, the problem is when politicians don't have business experience, they make some very bad decisions. And I think if there is one major criticism I have is that government doesn't consult enough with business. And the best example of that was this week when we have been debating in Parliament this wonderful scheme where employees give up their rights for shares. You all heard about the scheme? Right, what a great scheme. Okay. Asking your employees to give up their rights and you give them some shares. I've given lots of shares, I've given share options to employees. I've never once thought of asking them to give up rights at all. I think that's wrong. That's absolutely fundamentally wrong. And then this thing was so full of holes, they hadn't thought it through. The House of Lords defeated the House of Commons, sent it twice back. That very rarely happened. Of course, you know the Parliament Act, in the end, the House of Commons get their way. They sent it back to us for the third time, made lots of amendments, and it was passed. But I thought, and I asked the minister, I said, whose great idea was this? The press said it was the Chancellor, by the way. The minister wouldn't give me the answer. Who would think of a harebrained scheme like that, so full of holes, that no entrepreneur that I know, how many of you think it's a great idea to have a scheme for your employees to give up their rights? Not one hand has gone up in a room full of business people. And when Lord Adonis asked the government, did you consult? It transpired they didn't consult. They consulted on the implementation of the scheme, and out of 180 people who responded, only 3 of them thought it was a good idea. So went ahead with it. Anyway, so my one minister, please listen to the business more, consult business more. And where taxes are concerned, you're absolutely right. 20% corporation tax is fantastic, but 45% is still too high for income tax. And lending, I'm delighted to hear of these new schemes, and I wait to see them implemented. SMEs still cannot raise finance. Finance is still tough. Innovation, key. But do you know we as a country, Cambridge University has won more Nobel Prizes than any other university in the world. And that's in spite of the fact that we spend less than the OECD average on R&D as a percentage of GDP, less than the EU average as a percentage of GDP, less on R&D than America by miles. Even South Korea spends double the percentage of GDP that we do on R&D. How are we meant to continue to punch above our weight? We need more help there, and government should get behind it. And tourism is great. This country's got so much to offer. We have the best of the best. I am not despondent. We're bumping along the bottom. We've avoided a triple dip, but I'm still very, very confident that we've got huge potential in this country in every field. And as an entrepreneur, how I wish we had all the support that comes from government, organizations like this that existed when I started a business. We are very, very lucky. Thank you very much.
First on banking, on crowdsourcing, yes. 85% of SME lending is in the hands of just 4 banks. Now, I don't care whether they're here tonight or not. That is not satisfactory. That is not a competitive landscape for finance. Now, we're trying to make it more competitive. We're trying to encourage new banks, all the rest of it, there's banking regulation going through and so on. But we can't wait for that. And that's why we've got to help through our business bank, through the various schemes, but also through encouraging alternative finance, crowdsourcing, and the rest of it. And we're going to do that through the business bank. If you've got good ideas as to how we can do that, please get in touch with us urgently, because we're going to do that through the business bank, and there'll be room in there to encourage alternative finance. National insurance, yep, be a lovely idea to abolish it. A lot of politicians and governments have wanted to abolish it. The arithmetic, I'm afraid, doesn't work. It would put up the rate of income tax, and the government would turn around and income tax would be whatever it is, 7 or 8% higher. So no government's had the guts to do it. What we are doing is aligning the way national insurance is measured and paid with the PAYE system, so that it's simpler for small businesses who have to cope with both. And once we've done that for a few years, we'll see whether there's a case again for simply scrapping the whole thing, because it doesn't serve its original purpose. But of course, if we did that, it would add to the rate of income tax. The schemes, so far as the schemes are concerned, I'm a bit disappointed what you said about Growth Accelerator. I've seen it in action. You say it's shallow. It's an expensive scheme to pay for that coaching. All comes out of your taxes, and it's designed to reach, as I said, 6,000 people in the year that's just ended, 20,000 people this year. I went to visit the people who are delivering it with one of the firms up in Manchester on Wednesday. Yesterday, I was up there visiting somebody who was, turning over 30 million but wanted to double his business. He said that he really appreciated the satisfaction rating for Growth Accelerator is 98%. So you clearly fall in the 2%. We've got somebody who represents 1% here, but you clearly fall in the 2%. I'd love to spend more money on it. It's quite hard to get the money for it. Apprenticeships, please tell us where you think we could make the system deeper. Every plant or business I visit, I now see apprentices, and I see apprentices, by the way, proud to be working there. I'm not quite realising what industry or business was, sitting there in front of computer screens. I think we are getting somewhere with apprenticeships. But if you can help us improve, please do. Seed EIS, I think, is a great scheme. Simon has a reservation about it. It is designed for serial entrepreneurs, not just for one-off people who want to invest in their own business. And I was the wrong place to be last week, but I was in Boston, and the American VC community drools with envy at Seed EIS. They haven't got anything like it in the United States. In fact, they're sending people over here to study it. So it has, and we have spread word about it. It's slow to get off the ground. Why? Because we announced it a year ago, but of course you guys, you're fairly careful people, you don't take risks with everything. You wanted to see the small print of the Finance Act, which didn't become law until August last year. We've had a whole series of events to encourage take-up. And that comes back to Eric's point. And you said I was the Canterbury Minister, I've just done it. Because when we came into office, we found, wasn't two-party political, we found there had been an awful lot of advertising and marketing on all the government, whatever government was doing, the last government. So we had we were trying to cut public spending, we had a blanket ban on marketing and advertising. And you have to go to the Cabinet Office and ask for an exemption to that ban. And they said no and no and no. And I have got permission to market now the 5 top schemes, including Seed EIS, including Growth Accelerator, and including the Regional Growth Fund. That marketing starts on the 1st of May. Now that makes sense. You wouldn't put a new product out there without actually telling people you've got a new product. But we're catching up, and we're marketing our 5 top schemes from the 1st of May.
Thank you very much. Parry.
Yes, I'd just like to address a couple of questions. The first was alternative sources of funding. Frankly, I think the high street banks in this country have been a total and complete disaster. They have let down everybody, but most of all, they've let down our business community. And the problem is, they still don't get it. They say the words, but they don't really get it. And it is a very bad situation. My own view is after 6 years of saying no, 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 and putting companies in incubators and all the other things they don't know how to say yes. It's gone out of their vocabulary. So it's all very well, and I meet the banks all the time, but I just don't believe it's going to change. I think they're a lost cause, frankly, and I think the technology I spoke about before is going to overcome them. I think peer-to-peer lending, which is growing at a tremendous rate, is having a very, very dramatic effect, and I think alternative sources of funding, alternative banks. There are small banks that are growing. I mean, there's Santander, there's Aldermore. There are banks now which are not part of the Big Four, which are doing phenomenally well. And I think we will see in 10 years' time those 4 banks that we have in this country being very, very much diminished. But I just want to say one thing on it. We have this. I mean, this is a real difference between the parties. I mean, the coalition absolutely believes in this austerity program that we have had for the last 3 years. You may believe it's right. I happen to believe it's wrong. I really believe that government should be leading from the front and introducing a real growth program so that from the top there is now more money being spent, particularly in infrastructure projects, so that there is more money going into the economy so that we can grow. That's a fundamental difference between us. And I believe that growth will lead to confidence, And from confidence will come the leadership that's necessary for our businesses to grow.
Thank you very much. Before I call on Karen, Shalini, can you have your counters ready, because we're going to go to another vote. Karen, over to you.
I'll be very quick because I know the Minister has to leave. The national insurance is a tax on jobs. And of course, ideally, we'd like to get rid of it, but realistically, we can't. What I think the government has done correctly is to bring in an incentive so you can not pay national insurance and employers' national insurance. I think they could go much further in incentivizing no NI employers NI for taking their employees much more than they're doing. And I think that would really help generate employment and encourage enterprise. With the government schemes, yes, you said they're shallow. At least they're trying. Yeah. But, the big but is, I think the government should also actually take a bit more risk. The business growth program at Cranfield School of Management, which I did, 25th anniversary this year, that is the most amazing program for young companies to generate fast growth. And if you do research on the companies that have gone through that program, far, far outstrips anything else in the economy. The government sponsored some of those £8,000 a year per course to go on it, so you can be selected. And even 100 companies that go on that would make a huge difference. And I think you need to be a bit bolder in sponsoring things like that. Supporting somebody, Iqbal's friend was let down by the government who didn't help. Well, I'll give you an extreme example. Tata took over Jaguar Land Rover at the worst time. In 2008, the sales fell off a cliff. They needed funding. They went to the government. Peter Mandelson was Secretary of State at the time. Didn't help. They were very bitter about it. They raised the money themselves. What's happened now? You're successful. JLR made a profit of over $1 billion. So I think, entrepreneurs want help, but when the help isn't there, we somehow survive ourselves. Marketing. There's a fantastic campaign called the Great Britain Campaign, which is being shown around the world. Great idea. I think we need to do that campaign within Britain more, because like Parry, I agree totally that we need to generate confidence here. We have so much going for us in this country. We are the best of the best in engineering, in design, in accounting, in law, you name it, beer. We are. we have the best. And we've got to be confident about that more than anything else.
Thank you. Before I call on Caroline to sum up, we're going to revisit the questions you were asked at the beginning, and this time we're going to take a show of hands. So, if we go back to the 3 questions, the first one was, is Britain better sticking with a coalition, or would we be better under a pure Conservative or Labour government? Can you please raise your hands if you think a coalition between Liberals and Conservatives is the best way forward?
Lord Lumba is...
Purely Conservative. Counters all that?
Keep your hands up so we can just count it.
David. Leave her alone. Pure Labour. Good.
Wouldn't be the same in Sheffield, I can tell you that.
And coalition between Lib Dems and Labour. This one, Fine. The second question. Will the government's business bank make a significant difference to easing funding for SMEs? Yes? Okay, thank you. And no?
Keep your hands up, please, just for a second.
Okay, thank you. The final question had a more even spread of initial responses. What would benefit your business most? A further reduction in A, income tax, B, corporation tax, C, employer national insurance contributions, or D, VAT. So, income tax. Okay? Corporation tax. Okay, thank you. Employers' national insurance contributions. Okay, thank you. And finally, VAT. Good, thank you very much. Can I finally invite Darryl Heeds, Executive of Lloyds Capital and Chairman of E2E, to just the summary.
I stand up here with a degree of trepidation, a bit after the Lord's Mayor show, after a fantastic group of speakers, so charismatic, engaging, insightful. And also, I stand up here as the Chief Executive of a unique private equity business because we're owned by a bank. I have to say, I don't recognise the criticism of banks. LDC, this is nothing to do with party political for LDC. We've invested over £1 billion in UK SMEs in the last 4 years. We've got 95 people, 10 UK offices, and about a 25% market share. If I was the government, I would be encouraging all the banks to have their own private equity business. And I don't understand why there isn't more encouragement for private equity. The other thing I'd say about LDC, we've been profitable every year for the last 10 years. So don't tell me private equity is risky. It is not if it's done properly. And sometimes we've got to get rid of the sound bites and stick to the facts. And we need to depoliticise business. Shillings told me to be controversial, so I'm trying to be.
Vote Labour.
The other observation that I have is that I think these speakers are absolutely superb. If only all politicians were like this, actually knowledgeable about business. And I think that's the biggest single issue for me. You've got people in government and in Parliament who are making decisions that fundamentally affect the economy and every one of us in this room, who have never, ever been anywhere near a business.
Because the selection process is good.
Well, I'm sure someone's got some ideas on how to change it then.
From Parliament.
So, and I think that's something. The other big issue for me that business has to stand on its own 2 feet. I am sick and tired of negativity and cynicism in this country, and we need to start being more positive. I visited America 2 weeks ago and I went to Hong Kong a month ago. There is a completely different culture. It is all about what they can do and what they can achieve. Not, let's kick, I was going to say the shit song, kick the whatever out of people who try to do things that fail. Failure, and as all the speakers said, failure is a learning experience. I do not know anyone who is successful in business who hasn't had their fair share of failure. And the really interesting thing, and the speakers reinforced this, is they like talking about their failure because it's what makes them stronger. And the more people in business that can talk to youngsters about have a go, it won't succeed first time, I think more kids will actually try and build their own business. The problem is, and I remember a wizened chairman when I first went into private equity said this to me, people only see successful people when they're successful. They don't see the 25 years of hard work that goes into building that success. And it requires all of us to talk to kids in schools, in universities, in colleges, and remind them that we've all been through a process which is bloody difficult to build businesses, and it doesn't always work first time round. And I think that will give them the encouragement to have a go themselves. And this chairman eventually said, it's taken me 25 years to be an overnight success. And that sort of sticks stuff with me. So I think, can I just say a huge, huge thank you to the panel and to Iqbal. I think that's absolutely... I'm conscious everyone will now want a drink, so I've just got to do one little bit of marketing, which Shalene will tell me off otherwise. I think Shalene has done an absolutely brilliant job with the E2Exchange. I love entrepreneurs, I love entrepreneurialism. I'm delighted to become involved, particularly as chairman. But the reason I've done it, as much as anything, is to make sure the project that Shalini has started is successful. The only way we will all make Shalini's project successful is if we support her. The way you can do that most of all is by joining as a member, because as we get more funds, we can do more events, we can have more influence, and we can begin to help more young entrepreneurs start their own businesses. So I implore you, there are loads of subscription forms around the room. Shalini will come talk to you, persuade you, cajole you. But please, really, really consider how can you help Shalini make the E2Exchange the success it deserves to be. Final thank yous to the E2E team. You've done a brilliant job, and I just want to say thank you. You do. Well, we're just giving you a break. Absolutely brilliant. And finally, to get 250 people to an event like this is absolutely stunning. So can I say thank you to everyone in the room. Thank you very much. So, sign up tonight. Let's have a drink. Safe journey home. Thank you.